Hello, everyone. This is Gary Gomes back again to talk with you about Vedic astrology, what it means to you, what it means to the world in general, and also what we can expect over the next week. And I'm going to look a little bit more detail into Makar Sankranti, which starts in a few days. So, actually, 2 days from now. If you are interested in getting readings from me, I apologize for the brightness behind me. It's just really a reflection of how smart I am. And so if you want to contact me for readings or for lessons, you can call me or text me at 505 I'm sorry, 508 508 525 0001. Again, that's 508 525 0001. I can essentially uh, tailor the reading or the lessons according to your needs or interests. Um, Depending on, and you can talk with me. There's no commitment. If you talk to me, just contact me. I'd be happy to refer you to somebody else. If you don't like my approach or my teaching style or anything about me, it's a much wider field. You have a much greater choice than when I started some 34 years ago. And yeah, there are a variety of ways and schools and teachers you can approach and learn successfully both in person and online. So it's a big field. It's a big field out there. So also you can email me at GaryGomesG@gmail.com. That's Gary Gomes G, my name at and the letter G at gmail.com. Okay. So GaryGomes G at gmail.com. I'm sorry, at gmail.com. All right. So let's look at today's map. It's of course, of course, I'm going to be talking about what happened in California because I actually mentioned last week there was going to be some kind of a political scandal or some kind of event in Southern California. And it's both an event and a political scandal. So that's really, God, it's tragic what happened out there. So let's look at the chart. I have a different chart I have to adjust because I was using North Indian charts for a lot of folks over the past week or so. So let me fix that. And I'll get a South Indian chart up, which is more my preference. And let's see now. There's really no difference in how you interpret the charts. Um, Oops, sorry. I'll be right with you. There's really no difference on how you interpret the charts. You're not seeing this just yet, so my apologies. Options. All right, so let's go over here to, let's share the chart now that I have it on the screen. So this is for rats. It's not showing. By the way, in case you're wondering where I picked up that expression, that's actually from um, Peanuts, the Peanuts comic strip. So, so some things stay with you for a long time, right? All right, so that's where you'll often hear me say that, and that's really where I picked it up from. All right, so showing that some of us are more stuck in our childhood than others, obviously. All right, so we have, so let's look at the chart for this week. Um, okay, so the moon is, so this is a Taurus rising. Taurus is a stubborn sign. It's essentially, um, this I find interesting because the Lord of the first house is Venus, is located in the same sign as Saturn, and both those planets are aspected by Mars. So that's why the fire story is the big story this week. It's not, um, and I should have actually been paying more attention to that last week. By the way, I don't know if I'm wearing the same shirt as I did last week. Don't worry, I have changed shirts during the week. It's just coincidence you're seeing this shirt if I had this shirt on last week. Um, and let's see, no, it's just the way I recycle through my clothes. And Mars is aspecting Saturn, so it's causing a lot of damage. Mars is the indicator of property. Okay. In the Vedic chart, Mars and Mercury actually have co-sponsorship of that. Mercury is just leaving, or just in the process of leaving Mula Nakshatra, which is a very destructive nakshatra. So that's one of the things we can look at for that destruction of property. The Mars aspect also, if Mercury's in the eighth house and the sun is in the eighth house along with Mercury, um, there have there are, I won't say attempts at a cover-up from government, but certainly a lot of we're seeing a lot of so what the scandal is, I'm just going to say this flat out, what the scandal is that uh, everybody's trying to do this in California. Um, and so I've seen the broadcasts, like many of you, I think have seen them, and it's just a lot of finger pointing. Um, I do. Jupiter's in the first house. Jupiter's retrograde. Um, Mistakes are usually made when Jupiter's retrograde. It's been my experience, or mistakes in judgment. It's very strong, so there's going to be a lot of criticism leveled at the government for this. Um, Also, Jupiter rules, I'm sorry, yes, Jupiter rules the eighth house. And so again, this is indicative of a government screw up. If we have Mars in the third house, um, somebody, yeah, and it's retrograde, it's my judgment that at least one of the fires was started intentionally. Not, I would not be inclined to say it was a conspiracy, but just maybe an unhappy coincidence. The two people were at least two people were active fire starters in that area. Um, Mars is debilitated. It's going to take months at least for them to sort this out. Probably not until July for them to sort this out. The fires may show some increase in intensity. I really hope I'm wrong about this over the next week. Mercury actually finally moves out of Mula within a couple of days, which should be the end of like the greatest destruction, the most destructive period of the fires. But so essentially, Mula is ruled by a goddess called Nriti, and that particular goddess has uh, is very destructive. It's an incredibly destructive. It wipes out areas. Um, the response will be the response in terms of money will be slower than we want it to be. Um, Venus is essentially what I would call the insurance planet. Essentially, it's the payout planet is coming into conjunction with Saturn. It won't stay there that long, but um, the problem with that part of the country is that because there were fires um, in that region a few months ago, some people's insurance had run out, and they actually are having difficulty getting new insurance policies. Some folks are. Um, if we want to look at, so I don't need to look at this, but we have a Mars-Pluto opposition, which sort of underscores Mercury in Mula Nakshatra. Again, I'm going to be stubborn about this. You really don't need Pluto, but it does show up in certain events as causing problems. The Neptune-Rahu conjunction, if I want to look at that, the Neptune-Rahu conjunction does indicate a certain carelessness, but to be honest with you, um, so does Rahu in Pisces. And let me just see, Mars and K2 in Virgo indicates a certain carelessness about operation. So Virgo is essentially the sign connected with details, with fine details. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but hopefully within about a day or so, some of the fires will tamp down a bit, and hopefully before the end of the week they'll get under control. Because if Mars hits this sign, which it will, within about 3 to 4 days, we'll have more fires. So I'm hoping I'm wrong about that. I'm really desperately hoping I'm wrong about that. In terms of world politics, uh, essentially, we got the news last week that the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, is stepping down. We have a lot of um, territorial messages coming from President-elect Trump. We have a lot of some resistance to that, certainly from Denmark, in terms of Greenland, certainly from Mexico, and certainly from Panama. But it was interesting because I had a conversation years ago uh, with Jim Kelleher. Actually, it was an email exchange, I think. And I was saying that I thought the Mars Mahadasha this was a long time ago. I remember, Jim probably doesn't. But I thought the Mars Mahadasha would cause an expansionary trend in U.S. politics. Um, it didn't. What it did do, what the Moon and Mars Mahadashas did do for the United States, was it made us more. Um, Actually, the Sun Mahadasha, going back to the Bill Clinton years, that was the Sun Mahadasha. It did make us more willing to um, expand our reach and engage more actively in regime change. And this has been a tendency for the past 60 years, if we're completely honest. But it became much more overt during the Bush presidency, during the George W. Bush presidency. And it even continued into the Obama presidency. This is actual interest in territorial land and Jim, in fairness to him, thought that that would happen more during the Rahu Mahadasha, and it turns out he was right. The United States is now in a Rahu Mahadasha, and we're in Rahu Mercury, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just take a quick look. So whether or not these attempts will prove fruitful is anyone's guess, and I'll probably look at that a little bit more deeply as we go on. But let me just switch out of this. So right now, let's use a Gemini chart, Asha. So we're in an Aries Mahadasha, fifth house, Leo, Aries, Leo. So this will give us, quote unquote, um, the wind is at the United States back, and the Pisces Mahadasha, there will be some acquisition, I think, of additional lands. How much, I'm not sure. That's a very short Mahadasha, only 2 years in the current term of President Trump. Um, but I think that Aries is it's sort of like laying out the manifest destiny impulses in the United States chart. Uh, and also, let's look at Vimshotri. Yeah, we're in a Rahu Mercury. So Rahu Mercury is connected with land. March 27th, what we see is land. March 27th, 2026, possibly. But let's see. I mean, there may be some kind of a deal that we get roped into where we'll spend too much money for those accesses. Um, I think the one that has, I haven't looked at Panama chart, but the one that has the least potential, I think, for success. Um, well, Canada, I don't see Canada becoming switching and becoming a subsidiary of the United States anytime soon. But Greenland looks more possible because it's more remote, it's more connected with minerals, and also, but the renaming of the Gulf of Mexico is sort of like I I don't think that's such a particularly big issue, to be honest. Panama is a big issue because it has to do with trade, and Greenland is a big issue because it has to do with natural resources. Canada looks like it's going to flip uh, conservative over the next few months, but we'll see what happens. We'll look at that as those elections get closer. Um, the other thing is Macron is in France is apparently in trouble. So is Stur Sturmer in the UK. So we're going to keep a look at those particular countries. Like I said, we still have Rahu, and also Putin and Zelensky are both in trouble in the Ukraine and Russia. So I'm not giving you the astrological backing to do that. I'll probably do that next week. And but I think with Rahu and Pisces and Saturn and Venus in the 10th house in this chart, we're going to see a lot of changes in leadership over the next few months. That's virtually guaranteed, um, and really until June. And I do predict economic troubles for the United States and the world overall between now and the end of June, July. Uh, After which the transits will become more favorable for economic success. Um, so it doesn't necessarily mean that economies will collapse. That's not really the story here. I think that um, all these things are interesting phenomena. I um, I think if Trump can get what he wants out of Greenland or he can get what he wants out of Canada, there won't be such an urge to claim property, but who knows? So let's keep let's keep kind of an open mind about that. There was one president, um, James K. Polk, who was only in office for one term, but he was actually judged in terms of what he promised to do. He was judged the most successful president in United States history. So in 4 years, he essentially accomplished about 95% of his agenda. And one part of his agenda was spreading westward uh, and claiming the Northwest Territory. He didn't get all of it, but he got maybe around, uh, I would say around 50, 60% of what he was aiming for. So I'm seeing similar patterns, but again, these are different times. This is not, Donald Trump is not James Polk. And but I'll look at that in the future. It'll be interesting to look at. In terms of territorial acquisition, we're seeing the same kinds of tensions developing in China and also in the Middle East, also in terms of certain parts um, of the states of Syria are being claimed by Turkey now, if I recall correctly. And so, so we're seeing a bit of expansionism happening in those areas. So this is not, whenever you see these phenomena happening, this is not, these are not isolated phenomena. These are essentially um, parts of global phenomena. They're not just people working in isolation um, and the thought occurs to other people. China has large interests in Africa, and Africa is ceding large portions of land to China for certain nations in Africa because they can't pay their debts to China. They can't pay their obligations to China. Russia is involved in a bit of a land grab with Ukraine, which was much more forceful and much more aggressive. Um, so a lot of these things, um, France and Poland now are very um, alert about um, what they see as the threat of a Trump presidency to Europe. Uh, so I think that all these things like this land insecurity really comes from the K2 Virgo combination and Rahu and Pisces combination. Also, Saturn's about to approach Pisces. They'll be in conjunction around April 15th, as I've said many times before. That would be a time to panic over sovereignty or land or things like that. That would be when I would expect invasions or possible land grabs to occur. Whether or not they will or whether they'll be negotiated remains to be seen. But that would be, and again, we forget how much of previous world wars were fought over uh, natural resources and over uh, expansionary tendencies. So Germany, Italy, Japan uh, definitely got involved in world wars because they want to expand um, their economic resources and also their territories. So I think that's not an unreasonable assumption, but I don't see war in the immediate future, just to be truthful with you. Um, and I am going to see I think we are going to see some really interesting events. Rahu and Pisces, I'm going to look at P. Diddy's chart probably next week, see what's happening with there. But the entertainment industry has been suffering for a long time in the United States. That would be Pisces. Um, and I think globally, to be truthful, it's not really just isolated to the United States. So we had the 2 years post-COVID where attendance in theaters was deteriorating, and we also have now a new sort of scandals coming out around Hollywood, and also major studios changing their agendas. So because they've been alienating the public. So um, it's interesting. These are interesting times. That's always an old Chinese curse. In terms of industry, um, the Saturn-Venus combination in Aquarius does promise new technological innovations. That's very strong, and that's especially strong for space exploration. But I think also the problem with this chart is it shows the governments are a little bit weak. Now let's go to Makar Sankranti, and then we'll go back to um, the chart for the week. Okay? All right, as long as I have your permission. Okay. All right. And I know I'm missing some countries, so I apologize for those countries who I slighted in my overview. All right. So Makar Sankranti does tend to indicate, to me at least, um, government backing off or government being forced to back off from certain economic interventions. Sun's in the 12th house. So it'll be in the background, but this Saturn Venus in the first house will focus more on workers, more on populism. Mars, Rahu's in the second house. So again, there can be some financial panic over what I would call dubious currencies like cryptocurrencies. I'm still not really a big fan of cryptocurrencies, I'll be honest with you. Uh, Not because I have anything against them making money, but I'm seeing them. I've seen the field sort of like littered with opportunists and also governments going to try to develop its own cryptocurrencies. So it's it has a place as a medium of exchange. I just think it's um, we're moving one step closer to a cashless society, which I'm not so crazy about. Um, and if anything, and I do a lot of stuff online. I'm not saying that that if you want to deal with me, it's cash only, buddy. I do a lot of stuff online. Um, and as a matter of fact, you have to report cash for purposes of taxes, right? But I think overall, from this chart, here we have Rahu in Pisces in the second house, a lot of confusion, a lot of fraud about financial edifices. Jupiter's in the fourth house, some security, maybe some increase in stability in housing, but housing looks damaged for the next 6 months. Due in no small part to what's happening in California. A lot of attention is going to be focused over there. Um, K2's in the eighth house. Unexpected disruptions in supply chains because of K2 in the eighth house. Mercury, so we're not going to move away from inflationary pressure right away. And Mercury is in the 11th house, so it should be somewhat good for financial gains. But Mercury does indicate an up run on at least it's moving out, at least by Makara Sankranti. Mercury will move into Purvashada Nakshatra, which is a much better nakshatra than Mula. And so you'll start to see, let's say, rebuilding attempts or attempts at expanding housing. But the deregulation part of this will continue to grow. It will be obstructed for at least 4 to 5 months because of governmental interests. So it will be slow, but I think you'll see a kind of a break after April 15th through June, and then later on a more aggressive approach towards deregulation. Um, but we're looking at individual charts. Um, let's go back. So Aries should have a slow but good year. Taurus should have a lot of opportunities. Gemini should have, if we're looking at the year ahead, Gemini should have some arguments with family members and some discipline with family members, but also new relationships, new business partnerships, and also increased fame. Um, Cancer should have a difficult year, to be honest with you, from the Makara Sankranti chart, but it will be courageous and it will also focus on relationships and new business partnerships. Um, and also partial increase in luck and partial gains. For Leo, Leo will have a lot of struggles, a lot of difficulty working with the government, some difficulty making money, but overall good luck financially. Um, Venus and Saturn are in the seventh house. This could give more happiness and more stability in relationship life. Rahu is in the eighth house. So again, some attempts to embarrass it or some attempts to make it look less happy. Jupiter's in the 10th. So good opportunity for career growth. And Mars and Moon are in the 12th. So again, there's always that thing about um, career life will be difficult. You'll have to work twice as hard to make the same progress, but you will make it. For Virgo, this is for the year. Virgo has Ketu Rahu in the first house. Ketu's in the first house, excuse me. Rahu's in the seventh. Some problems, some increased luck with partnerships, business partnerships, but still some job dissatisfaction overall. Uh, but basically good for career life and also good for confidence for the sign. Venus and Saturn sit in the sixth house. So I think this sign will find it difficult to make money, but if you push hard enough, you'll make some progress. And Jupiter's in the ninth house. That's good for financial growth overall for this sign. Um, for Libra, Libra has Venus is in the fifth house along with Saturn. Again, that's a Raj Yoga for this particular sign. Moon is in the 10th house of career, so there will be increased wealth from career, although you will find yourself doing a lot of the same things you did before. Sudden windfalls, not a steady flow of income, though. Um, Mercury's in the third house. That's good for uh, articulation, intelligence, communication. Sun's in the fourth house. A lot of focus on home life and family life. And Rahu's in the sixth, so there will be some short-term health problems this sign and a lot of doctor visits for this sign this year. For Scorpio, Scorpio has Mars in the ninth house that's essentially not a bad placement. You have the debilitation of Mars canceled a bit, so this should make this week and this upcoming year a bit lucky. Mercury's in the second house. It should give increased financial growth to the sign. Sun is in the third house, should give the sign additional courage. Venus and Saturn are in the fourth house, so it should give increased financial growth both this year and this week. But again, a lot of the resources will be funneled back into family matters or financial matters connected with the home. Rahu's in the fifth, some anxiety about children, although children will succeed. Jupiter's in the seventh. It will give increased opportunities in relationship life and also increased business partnerships. Mars and Moon are in the ninth house. This is overall a good placement for financial growth for this sign. Ketu's in the 11th. I would still encourage this sign not to trust its friends until at least March of this year, March or even June of next year. For Sagittarius, so I'm including these both for this week and for next year, so that basically the significations are so similar that it seems silly to break them up. Mercury will give new relationship opportunities to the sign. The sun will be focused on new relationships. Sun is in the second house, financial gain through government. Saturn and Venus are in the third house. That gives increasing courage and also some diplomatic skills to the sign. Rahu's in the fourth house in Sagittarius. So that should be, I'm sorry, in Pisces, my apologies. In Pisces, and Ketu's in Virgo. So again, not a lot of recognition, not a lot of ability to form goals or progress in work. That really won't happen until the summertime. Let's see now. Jupiter's in the sixth house. Lord of the First is in the sixth house. So a lot of heavy work for the sign. And Mars and Moon are in the eighth house. So this can indicate some losses through property, but also some regains through the moon being in the same sign. Let's see now. Capricorn, our friend Capricorn. Capricorn has Saturn and Venus creating a great Raj Yoga for this particular sign. Basically, you'll see Venus and Saturn in planetary war towards the end of this week. But this is, again, like I said, this projection is good for next year and for next week. So I'm doing double duty. Next week's reading will be different. So we have Venus and Saturn in Aquarius. So great time for technological innovation for Capricorn. Some debts or disputes with the government, though, because the sun being in the first house. Rahu is in the third house in the sign, so a lot of courage. Again, Capricorn has been relatively successful over the past few weeks, and I expect to see that trend continue over at least the next couple of weeks. And Jupiter sits in the fifth house, so Jupiter's aspecting the ninth and the 11th and the first house for this rising sign. So those are good aspects. Jupiter aspects are always favorable. Mars and Moon aspect the first house, and there's a full moon on this particular Makar Sankranti. So essentially, you should see the fruition of some projects come about this week, but there will be some disputes about them, unfortunately. But that'll be okay, and a lot of disputes will occur with relationship partner. K2's in the ninth house. This isn't a bad placement. Mercury's located in the 12th. So I would call this a Viprit Raj Yoga because the Lord of the ninth the Lord of the eighth is in the 12th house. So so essentially, this should produce good luck from foreign sources. And let's see now. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Saturn and Venus in the first house. Um, let's see what that looks like. That's a really powerful Raj Yoga for this particular sign. So this would be Aquarius, rising sun or moon. Um, and one of the things that I look at for combinations like this is they'll usually involve hard work. Mars also aspects this particular sign, so we have to make that mindful. It'll involve a lot of arguments, a lot of disputes. Uh, Moon, the sixth house lord, doesn't aspect it, but there will be some financial investments required for this sign to actually engage in success, and there will be some debts and maybe money owed to the government. But overall, this sign will be very successful this year. It will manage to acquire a lot of money because of Rahu being in the second house and its dispositor or ruler Jupiter being in the fourth house. So this should bring a lot of stability. This sign should look out for health problems, so especially stomach related and digestive related. So in the eighth house, sort of like ramps that up just a little bit. Mercury is in the 11th house, so good for financial gains, but again, a lot more taxes than normal. Finally, for Pisces, Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. It's located in the third house away, so that will make this sign very, very diplomatic, but a little bit dissatisfied, a little bit nervous, a little bit anxious. Relationship partners will seem to be a little bit detached or isolated. And again, like I said, this is for the next week and the following week and the following year, excuse me. And we have Jupiter's in one, two, three, Jupiter's in the third house. Good relationships with brothers, maybe reestablishing relationships with siblings. Mars is in the fifth. Not a bad placement. Mars is debilitated with the cancellation of debilitation. However, certain things connected with property will require heavy expenditures. That goes back to that Saturn-Venus conjunction in the chart, which I mentioned before. Uh, K2's in the seventh house. I already mentioned this. Relationship partners will seem kind of detached or kind of lackadaisical. Pisces in general should watch out for marital difficulties over the next couple of years. So that's just a heads up. Um, and so should Virgo, to be honest. Mercury is in the 11th house of career, so career life should be really good. Financial gains should be really good. But again, in order to succeed, this particular sign will have to spend. So that's a summary of both the Makara Sankranti year and next week in general. Um, the only thing that I didn't take advantage of is for those of you who are writers um, or engaged in communications. This current placement of the moon over the past couple of days has been really, really good for writers. It's been really, really good for people in creative fields. So even though um, it hasn't been so good for family or family health, for those two parts of life, it's been extraordinarily good. Okay. So again, this is the tragedy in California is weighing heavily on everybody's minds. It's not really, you know, I really don't want to finger point, but to be honest with you, it is um, God, um, it's really, you know, I hate to say this, but there are blamable parties. I don't want to dwell on that too much until um, the crisis is over. But um, let's look at the world map. Let's try to get out of that particular corner and look at the world map. So we have sun. We have this is uh, for the now New Bedford map, and for over the next week, we should look for news stories about the Aleutian Islands and Eastern Canada, and also Western and and also Western. I'm sorry, and Eastern Alaska. My apologies, and also some government screw ups in Western Canada, maybe even some um, earthquake or sea catastrophe in Western Canada. We have a Jupiter line intersecting with a Mars line in this area. So I don't think that's going to affect many people. Still, it's going to be a little bit difficult in terms of the land up there. There's a Venus line running through Vancouver and also close to Washington State. And there's a Saturn line running right through California. Oh my gosh, pretty close to San Francisco. Um, and I really hope that nothing further happens in California, but this is not really a good line over here, and it goes up through the northeast. So there could be some fires around this area, some distress, some degradation of the environment around San Francisco. The Rahu line is closer to where the fires are, though, if I'm honest. And so, but California itself is so is Nevada, and so are uh, Utah, Washington, and Oregon are sandwiched between this Saturn and Rahu line, which is not good. So government scandals in all those states. Um, Idaho, I see Utah, Idaho, my apologies. And Idaho, Montana. And also the Saturn line tends to indicate slow recovery, very slow recovery for California. Um, Hopefully I'm wrong about that and people will get their acts together relatively quickly, but uh, from these planetary lines, I'm not optimistic about that. Um, there is a Mercury line running through um, Arizona, Mexico, and also a moon line running through. Now, moon is really close to Mars, so keep that in mind. So there can be some physical balance in these states, New Mexico up through Nebraska, and in western Texas. I can't tell my east from my west this week. And we have a sun line coming through Minnesota all the way down into Louisiana, all the way down into down close to Guatemala and Mexico. So there may be some conflict in those particular countries. And we have a Mars line running through Nicaragua. Um, I think this could indicate some natural disasters or governmental upsets in Nicaragua, also in uh, Mississippi, Alabama, up through Michigan. So prepare yourself for those things. There's a Jupiter line running through right through Maine and um, going through um, a Venus line right into Brazil. One thing I didn't mention was um, Facebook's decision to fire a lot of fact checkers has left a lot of governments around the world very upset. And it's really so you can be of two minds about that. You can look at that as the government's wanting to control information or the government's wanting to protect people from misinformation. Um, I kind of welcome it, to be honest with you, because we have this Saturn line running through Brazil, and Brazil's been in a state of, I would say, comparative um, suppression for a while now. Um, I'm not down there. I can't speak for the country, but just from this astrological map, yeah, that's what it looks like to me. Venus and Saturn are over Greenland. Um, so people are definitely looking at economic value in Greenland. They're, the rising sign and the moon sign are close to the Azores, and Rahu is close to the Azores, so there may be some kind of government scandal in the Azores. And let's see now, there's a sun line running through, I believe it's Ghana. I'm not sure about that. Let me just check my map. Hold on a second. I do need to check my map. Let me just give me, in case it give me a second, because I always get this part of Africa screwed up, and I just want to make sure I'm not giving bad information. No, that's Mauritania. So we don't hear a lot about Mauritania, but there's a Mars line running through there and through Libya and down close to Gabon and down close to Angola and I'm sorry, Southwest Africa and South Africa. So this could indicate some potential for natural disasters or political violence in those countries. Um, Interestingly enough, we're not seeing a lot of political violence in Spain, France, Germany, but they are hemmed in between Venus and uh, Mars. So, and also Venus, which is right next to Saturn, is hovering over the Middle East and over Syria and Turkey right here, and also over um, Finland and Eastern Europe. So that's kind of touching um, into the conflict area of Iran or the potential conflict area of Iran and also um, Ukraine and also Saudi Arabia. So that part of the world still stays volatile. Um, so you have to watch out for this. There is a moon, a Rahu, Mercury moon line, um, essentially highlighting Afghanistan and Pakistan and tipping into India. So there could be some political violence in those two countries. These three countries are where I would really focus my attention over the next few months. Um, and it's not just because of Israel, it's because of these governments are pretty much on the verge of collapse, Pakistan and Afghanistan. So that drives people to do desperate things. The sun is close to Bangladesh and Ladakh. So again, that's some government suppression there. Mars is in Laos, Cambodia, not really in Cambodia per se, but Laos and Thailand. Um, so there should be some potential for natural disasters in Indonesia. And let's see, the other thing we have right here is we have a descending Jupiter line passing over Indonesia and a Venus line passing through Australia. So Venus lines tend to bring rains, but with Saturn, it's not quite so sure. And there's a Saturn line, yep, running right through Australia. So again, this could be a heavy drought area. And there's a Mercury line. So we'll hear more communications about Australia and more dissatisfaction with the government. New Zealand isn't being touched by anything right now. So they get a well-deserved break this week. So I think that's about it for this week. Um, if you have any questions about why I converged the world map and the weekly forecast, they're only 2 days apart. So I just figured it would make sense to do the weekly charts that way, maybe save some of your time. And that's it from me for this week. I will be having some more guests on fairly soon. Um, and let's stop the share. So I just want to say goodbye. Wish you a happy Makar Sankranti. These are temporary problems. Every problem is a temporary problem. But again, our prayers go out for the people in California. This is really um, sort of an immense disaster. And not sort of an immense disaster. It is an immense disaster. And I hope they get out of it quickly. And I hope they have the option and start to rebuild very, very soon. Uh, to everyone else suffering in the world, please accept my prayers, and I hope the world can find happiness and grace in 2025. Namaste. Thank you very much for watching. I love you all. Okay, and take care out there. Uh, be happy, be healthy, and be prosperous. Okay. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you next week. Thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate you. Oh, and if you could, please subscribe, please comment, and please like if you feel so inclined. Okay? Thank you very much. We are getting close to 1,000 subscribers. It's been a long, slow process, but again, part of it's the decisions I've made, part of it's the frequency with which I'm on, and part of it's other things which probably have to do with the content, which I'll try to address over the next year. Okay? All right, folks. Thanks a lot, and namaste. Thanks very much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you.